Well, hello. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, NoleFam, to another episode of the Novak Weekly Podcast. I'm your host, Marko Milenković, and joining me, as he does always, is my good friend from Italy, Mario Boccardi. Mario, how are you doing, buddy?
Hi, very happy to be here as always. It's going to be a good one. So looking forward to begin.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. In today's episode, we'll preview the ATP Tour Finals, which have already begun, by the way, because we're filming this on Sunday, the 12th. It's 7:10 p.m. currently, Central European time. But
Mm.
we'll also talk about Serbia UK Davis Cup matchup, as well as Novak's relationship with the British media, his contemporaries, his goals for 2024, and some other topics with our guest today. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our guest, one of the most outspoken NoleFam members out there. It is our dear friend, Pavvy G. Pavvy, welcome, man. It's so great to finally talk to you. How are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm very well. Thank you for a lovely introduction there, Marko and Mario. And honestly, it's a honor to be on here. I've been following all of your shows, and it's
Thank you
really
so much.
to come on and talk. Let's talk tennis. Let's talk Djokovic. Let's talk everything that's happening at the moment. So very excited to be on here, guys.
Yeah, listen, I gotta tell you something. You're you're probably familiar with that, quite a controversial figure on tennis Twitter. You know, a lot of people have told me, over the last couple of months, don't associate yourself with him, don't do that, or like I'll unfollow you and things like that. Then, first of all, let me tell you something. Nobody tells me, what to do. Second of all, do I agree with everything you say or write? No. Do I think that sometimes you might overdo certain things? Yes. But apart from me actually agreeing with you on a lot of stuff, from tennis to COVID to even politics, I respect your courage and your devotion to free speech. And I think we need more of that in today's world. So I just wanted to say that. And, now let's talk some tennis, shall we?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. And I've been called every name under the sun in
Yeah,
Twitter.
I can imagine.
But I do think ultimately I get a lot more support and love than the haters, and I will say it as I see it, and it's unfiltered with me. Whatever I say, I do believe. But I appreciate people disagree. I have people from family and friends that disagree with some things that I say, but it doesn't stop us from having a relationship. And I think that's what's
Of course,
been
yeah.
is debating. We're losing the notion of debating respectfully, where because it seems as though you've got to be on one side. You've got to be a Djokovic fan, or you've got to be a Federer fan, and in politics you've got to pick one side. And if you don't, people will call you names and toxic, and all that sort of stuff. So
Exactly.
I appreciate you guys, not listening to the haters and giving me an opportunity to speak. So I appreciate that, guys.
No, listen. I went through a lot of similar stuff in the last 3 years, ever since COVID began, because I'm not vaccinated and I have my certain reasons and certain beliefs, and that's why I said that I don't agree with everything you say, right? But honestly, I find myself agreeing with you on a lot of stuff. Tennis most of the time because we share, uh, uh, we have similar thoughts and views. But even politics and COVID, even though in the last couple of months I've been trying to distance myself from politics, not only because I'm not gaining anything from it, but simply because I don't have the time, because I'm doing all of this and a lot of other projects that Mario is familiar with. So yeah, so I just wanted to say that, and I really appreciate everything that you're doing for Novak, especially me being from Serbia. We'll talk about British media and Western media,
Sure.
how we as a nation have been portrayed, and to see. I'm going to use this word. It's not a derogatory. Foreigners like you and Mario, guys who are not from Serbia, love and defend Novak and extend their love from Novak to Serbia and Serbian things. It fills my heart, honestly. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you,
That's
guys.
nice for you to say that.
Yeah. Now let's talk some tennis. First of all, first topic, as we said, let's talk ATP Tour Finals. As I said, the games have already begun. Mario was super happy. He was texting me a couple of hours ago because Yannick Sinner has
Cool.
achieved his first victory in this year's edition. He beat Stefanos Tsitsipas 6-4, 6-4, if I'm correct. Is that right, Mario?
You're correct.
Yes. So awesome win for you. Awesome win for Yannick, who's been playing, some amazing tennis post US Open. He won Vienna, he won Beijing, right? And he made a couple of semifinals. So first of all, let me ask you guys, as Novak fans, are you satisfied with the draw? And second question, should the draw even be important given the fact who he is and how he plays? Let's start. Sorry, Mario. Pavvy, let's start with you. We have.
Sorry. You're
right. Our guest always has the first say.
I mean, first of all, super excited. Obviously, we're coming on the back end of Paris, so Novak is bang on form. He's living his life. He's at the football at Juventus, so he's in a good place mentally. In terms of the group, I was fairly pleased with it. I think with the 8 players that are on there, Novak's beaten all of them this year. So when you look at the draw, you think, well, is there anyone really that is Novak's going to be scared of? And Alcaraz maybe said a few months ago, but since he win and Alcaraz's form dipping off, probably not. Sinner, he's the only player from the 8 that's never beaten Novak Djoković, which is quite interesting. But he's
3-0 head-to-head record.
Yeah, and then we've got Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas has struggled a little bit in the last 2 days with an elbow or some sort of injury, and I think that might. There was talks that he might actually withdraw from the group, but he's actually managed to get some physio and played today. And then there's Rune. Obviously, Rune is that's the one that Djokovic has real battles with. He's 2-2 head to head. Every single match that they've had has been really close. So to answer your question, are we scared of anyone? No. I think who's going to be the toughest out of those? I would say Yannick Sinner. Obviously, he's fresh because he pulled out from Paris, obviously due to the poor scheduling, but that did give him an extra 2 or 3 days preparation, which could be key. I know he's playing in front of his home crowd. He got very emotional today. I don't know if you guys saw after he beat Tsitsipas. He was overwhelmed by all the support that he got, and I know Mario is very big supporter of Yannick as well, and I'm sure that gives you a lot of joy as well. But I think that for me is going to be his toughest game out in the group stages. I think Sinner's playing the best tennis of his career. He's backing up his performances this year, which he probably didn't do as much in the previous years. I think this year he seems to be pushing on from quarters and going on to semis and finals and beating top 10 players. So, in the previous year, Sinner was always very good, but sometimes he would get caught out when he faced the real top players. And he seems to have got over that hurdle now. Tsitsipas, as I said, Djokovic has beaten him quite comfortably recently. I would expect Djokovic to beat him. And Rune, obviously, he's just beaten him a couple of weeks ago. Less than a couple of weeks ago in Paris, just over a week ago. But it was a close match. And I know Djokovic was struggling with the stomach issue. But Rune played some really good tennis. I mean, they say styles make fights as they do in boxing and tennis. And I think Rune's style against Djokovic is very effective. So I expect him to be a tough match. But for me personally, I just want him to get that one win. Initially, I just want him to get that year-end number 1. And if he wins, then he's also guaranteed to get 400 weeks as number 1, which is another lovely milestone that I like. So keep bringing him on.
Yeah, Mario, let me ask you this. How much will Boris Becker bring to, Holger Rune's overall game? Because again, same with Stefanos Tsitsipas, a guy who, if we take a look at this, summer swing in North America and even post US Open, was not having a good stretch over there.
Of course. Also, probably a poor physical form also played a role in that poor form Rune had since Wimbledon, US Open swing, and after that. But yeah, have to say that for sure Boris Becker is going to bring a lot into the team in terms of the enormous experience he has, also coaching incredible players and Novak himself. And also from a tactical point of view, can really help him to, especially on the quick and faster faces, in my opinion, can really help him to do that quality jump that he is seeking to go even higher in the ranking and try to catch these top 3, 4, 5 spots that he had in the summer, but still was not there for a lot of time. And he needed something in his team, in my opinion, because he needed to understand that his game is very complete, and so it's not that easy when you are like that to understand what are the things you have to work the most on. And I think that Boris Becker can really be a great addition to his team. We already have seen him being in better form, and I think that we will see more of this collab, of course, after the off season, and with the work they will put on together. We will then see in 2024 what's going to happen, but I'm sure that it can be a good relationship between the two.
Yeah. By the way, we saw an amazing photo yesterday that Holger shared on his Instagram photo with him, Boris Becker, and Novak, with the captions like 3 generation, which kind of is true because Novak is 16 years senior to Holger Rune. But Pavvy, let me ask you this: should Novak top this group?
He should. He should. I think I'm always a little bit concerned when Novak wins a tournament and then goes into another tournament within kind of a few days. So historically, he's not done well when he's won one tournament. He normally likes to have 2 or 3 weeks. I think he said that a few years ago in an interview, that once he wins a tournament, he likes to have 2 or 3 weeks where he just chills and relaxes and
mental break more than anything.
So I think, for me personally, I think it might be tough winning it, but I think he will top this group. I think I think he'll beat Rune. I think he'll beat Tsitsipas. I think that it will be between him and Sinner, who tops the group. I expect Sinner and Djokovic to be the 2 that will prevail and go into the knockout semis. And I think there's a good chance. I think Djokovic Sinner is for me the key game, and whoever wins that game will top the group for me.
Yeah, they'll play on Tuesday, and as you said previously, if Novak wins tonight, he has a chance to get that 400 weeks world as being world number 1, as secure his record extending 8th year-round title, basically, which is outrageous, something outrageous. Let's head on to red group, which consists of Carlos Alcaraz, Daniil Medvedev, Andrei Rublev, and Alexander Zverev. Very, very interesting one. Mario, your first thoughts?
For me, it is very, very difficult to make a prediction about this group, because as for Alcaraz, we saw that he's paying a little bit the amazing season he had till Wimbledon and also in Cincinnati, because he overall played a very well tournament and also a very well final against Novak, and after still a very solid US Open, because he arrived to the semis, played 4 sets against Medvedev, who was very, very good that day. Since then, he hasn't been that good. He had some tough moments, and I also want to see how he's going to adapt his game to the conditions in Turin, that, as we saw also in the Sinner Tsitsipas match, should be as quick as the previous years. Medvedev, he should be good on the fast courts, but in the previous 2 years he never really convinced me in Turin. Even that year, when he reached the final, in my opinion, he still has to play a very, very good match in Turin so far. So I think that probably he should qualify, in my opinion. But still, I have a little bit of a question mark about him. Rublev have done a quality jump, in my opinion, this season, both technically, especially from the backhand side, and mentally. So I'm expecting him to be a threat for the two main favorites, which are still based on the seeding and also on the ability we know they can show on the court. Alcaraz and Medvedev, but I think Rublev can be really a threat. What about Zverev? He has had a little bit of a roller coaster year, some very good moments, some tough moments. Overall, a good year considering that he was coming back from the injury, but was not incredible in this very past 2-3 weeks. So probably I will take him off at this moment from the first two spots in the group, but we saw how well he can play there in Turin if he serves well. He also can do really, really well from the backhand side during the rally. So yeah, let's say that I see this group with two players that I consider slightly favorite, which are the top two of this group, let's say Alcaraz and Medvedev. But I think that Rublev and Zverev can really have their say in this group. So I'm not expecting this to be easy for anyone. I'm expecting a lot of fight for these two qualifying spots.
Pavvy, what can you tell me about Sasha Zverev? I mean, he had a really good season. He won this tournament twice in his career, I think in 2018 and 2021. Can he be, let's say, the dark horse? Even if, it's funny to say dark horse. These are, the top 8, ranked guys in the world. But, if we exclude Novak and Carlos, can he be like the third guy maybe in this year's edition to win the tournament?
I think so, and I think Murray has kind of articulated Zverev's seasons quite well this year, in that he's done quite well, but he's had some difficult moments as well. It's almost 5 years to the date actually that I saw Zverev beat Djoković in London in the ATP Tour final in 2018, and that was Zverev's first end of season ATP title, and he played unbelievable. Djoković just couldn't find a way past him that day. And I left that stadium thinking, I think Zverev is going to be a real big challenge for Djoković in the next few years. And it never materialized. And I think the issue with Zverev this year in particular, and I've been outspoken about this a couple of times, but he's facing a lot of stuff off court at the moment.
Yeah.
And I know that's impacted him quite a lot mentally. I think people don't realize that, because a lot of people think, well, he's, it's his own kind of doing kind of thing. So he doesn't get a lot of sympathy from a lot of the media. But I know that he's really facing a lot of turmoil off court, and I think that's impacted him on his season this year. I actually think I'll even go to far when he got the injury with Nadal. The type of injury that he got is caused by extreme stress as well. So I think that he put himself under that much stress off court and dealing with stuff that's actually attributed to that awful injury that we all saw in the French Open. Now, like Murray said, coming after injury, he's got himself back in the top 10. So if you said that to him at the start of the season and his fans, they'll be like, absolutely, we'll take that 100%.
Yeah. Where can I sign that?
Yeah. Playing wise, I think he's got the ability. I think he is now hitting the ball as well as he's hit. I don't quite think he's at the level that he was 2021, where he was really, he got to the final of the US. He should have won the US Open. He got really tight against Team. So he's got the ability, and I think he's capable of winning 1 or 2 matches here. Will he qualify? I'm not sure. I think he could win 1 or 2 games. I don't think this year he is going to be a threat to win the title. And that's primarily due to the stuff that's going off court at the moment. And I think, we all know, with Novak, he's quite unique with his mental strength. But tennis is huge mental. Everyone's got the talent. Every top 100 player's got every shot under the book. But it's whether you can do that if you're facing mental challenges. And at the moment, Zverev is under some sort of pressure, and I'm not sure that is going to result in his peak performance, which is what he would need to do to win it. So I think he might win a game or two, but I can't see him qualifying for the semis, and I definitely can't see him winning.
So who would you guys pick as your favorite to win the ATP Finals?
Do you want to go first, Mario?
No, well, I'm saying that in my opinion, Djokovic is the favorite. Even since it's been quite a lot since he won both this Paris and ATP Finals title in the same season, but I still think that he is the main favorite with followed by, I would say that this year, in my opinion, the seeding is really well put. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Even if probably about Sinner, Medvedev, Alcaraz, they're probably there. But in my opinion, overall the seeding is quite balanced. So I'm leaving that as my power ranking to to the title. Probably Rune, if I don't know if he manages to beat Sinner, but I don't know. He will need to beat Djokovic twice, probably. And in the same tournament, that's going to be quite a lot. I don't know, but I think Djokovic is the favorite, in my opinion.
Pavvy, what about you, buddy?
Yeah, I echo that. I mean, I think it's going to be a Djokovic-Sinner final. So I think both of them will qualify from this group, and then they'll win their semi-final games. I think Sinner, I'm in two minds here. I initially thought after Paris, I thought he's not going to be able to win the ATP because historically, as Mario said, he struggles when he wins Paris and then goes straight onto the ATP Tour Finals. And last year was the first time that he'd won the ATP Tour Finals for about 6 or 7 years. I think he hadn't won it for a while. And I think last year was really important for him because he'd missed so much tennis that he really wanted to just finish the season on a. He was super motivated to do that. So, but I look at the rest of the field and like Maria said, can Rune beat Djokovic twice? Zverev, I've talked about. Alcaraz, I think he's running on empty, both physically and mentally. I don't think he's a threat to Djokovic in this tournament. He may regroup and come back next year, and I'm sure he will. But I think this year, for me, it seems this season he's very much running on low fuel at the moment, and I think he'll struggle to go all the way. Medvedev, again, these conditions, he's not been great in Turin. So, you look at the consistency, you think, actually, well, Sinner is probably playing the best tennis at the moment. He's the freshest of the players, having that extra few days off from Paris. So, for me, it's between Djokovic and Sinner. I'm probably going to be a bit biased, and I think Djokovic will do it, actually.
Yeah, I'm going to do that as well because I made a mistake last week of not picking him because I really thought that, I don't want to say that he would be rusty, but that he simply wouldn't care that much because we all know what he said about his priorities for the end of the year. Davis Cup, number 1, and ATP Finals, and getting the year-end number 1 would be number 2. And Paris, I sort of, saw Paris as, getting into shape, getting ready for Turin and Malaga, which is, coming a week after Turin. So I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to pick Novak as well because I did it for Cincy and for US Open, and it went well.
Wrong. So in the end,
no,
I was right because he won the tournament, but you were in the end about the analysis, probably you were more right than me because he was actually very close to not winning it. The final then was he won quite comfortably the final, but he has faced a lot of challenges last week. So 2 weeks ago. So
and by the way, I was quite certain that neither Alcaraz nor Medvedev would win it or reach the final. I said, from Sinner to, let's say, Rublev or maybe even Tsitsipas. So yeah, I did good not for a guy whose tennis is not his, not even second sport. Yeah, I did pretty okay. Okay, guys, so let's move to our other subject. As I mentioned before, Davis Cup. It'll be, we'll watch the, finals in Malaga, the last 8 teams, and we'll have an interesting encounter between Serbia and the United Kingdom in the quarterfinals. Pavvy, as a UK guy, as a British guy, are you looking forward to it? Are you nervous? What do you think of it? And most importantly, who do you think we're gonna progress to the semis?
It's really, really difficult for me. I mean, I've you don't know if you know much of my history, but kind of growing up through tennis, I would watch Britain play a lot of Davis Cup. That's what really got me into supporting tennis. And obviously now, since then, I've got a love for Djokovic and I've got a love for Serbia. I think a lot of our cultures are intertwined. I'm Indian. I feel that a lot of my culture is very similar to Serbian. So I feel
It is.
strong allegiances to obviously, being born and bred in Britain, but being from Indian parents and my love and respect for Novak and Serbians, and meeting so many friends through the NoleFam. And I've got so many Serbian friends now, I'm honored to have. So excited, nervous. I think this year, it's added a little bit of edge, guys, because you probably saw Andy Murray's comment on Instagram, which obviously I was quite vocal about.
Yep. We're going to talk about that as well.
Yeah. So it's added a bit of needle because Norrie obviously had the incident with Djokovic. I don't think Norrie is particularly a huge fan of Djokovic, and I think I can say that I think Djokovic isn't a huge fan of Norrie either.
Yeah.
No,
man's have a point.
Yeah, and with Murray, he's obviously they were childhood friends, and they went to tournaments together. They stayed in hotels together. They were very, very tight. They played doubles together. There was a lot of friendship. But then it got to a stage where they were playing each other week in, week out, and Djokovic was getting the better of Murray. And then we kind of saw a different side of Murray where he probably thought, actually, I can't really be good friends with the guy that I'm competing for big titles week in, week out. And they that friendship kind of lost a little bit. It kind of got back a little bit in the last couple of years. They started practicing again, and then you saw that comment by Murray. So there's a lot of stake here, and I am excited because I think it's going to be popcorn tennis, and I love a bit of needle. That's me. I don't mind a bit of needle and aggro. That's why I don't mind getting stuck into debates and whatever. I think it's interesting. I think that part of tennis is great. It's fun. So I'm more excited more than anything. I think there's 2 evenly matched teams. I think Britain have got a massive blow because they've lost Dan Evans, who was playing, who plays phenomenally well in Davis Cup for Britain. He's also an excellent doubles player, and he obviously pulled up with a bad injury in Paris against Tiafoe in the first round when he was cruising that match. So it was really tough for him, and he confirmed that he was withdrawing from the Davis Cup team. And Norrie pulled out as well. So there's a few injury concerns with the GB team at the moment. Murray's not in any form, whatsoever. And he was supposed to be playing Mets this week. He pulled out of that. He had that awful match where he got really tight to beat de Minaur and lost the double break and match points. So mentally he's not in a great place, but that might actually just be perfect for Murray because he's got nothing to lose. So really interested, really pumped for that match.
Mario, what do you think? Because if I remember correctly, when we first talked about the Davis Cup,
I know what I told you.
Yeah, no, I think we talked about with our episode we did with Tony Doshin, and
yes,
I think you said that Serbia got the toughest opponent in the draw. With all the things that have been happening, that Pavvy already mentioned, what do you think now?
Yeah, I remember that at the time I told you that in my opinion, Great Britain was in my mind the number 1 team as the favorite to win the whole thing. But something happened. Let's say like this, talking about the tie against Serbia. The only thing I think I'm pretty sure of is that Jack Draper is going to play as the number 2 singles player, because I think that without Evans, I think Murray should go there. And at this point, I don't know if Norrie will be ready to play or not. But I think that if he's Norrie ready to play, probably will be Norrie and Draper, or Murray and Draper. Because I'm not seeing it at this moment Jack taken out of the singles for the Davis Cup. I'm saying that, in my opinion, now the things are, probably due to the presence of Djokovic at this point, I would say 55-45 probably in Serbia's favor, because when there was Evans there, it was different because I was trusting a lot the doubles team. And even if Djokovic would have played the doubles, I would have found it really, really difficult for the Serbian for Serbia to beat the British team, because it really was doing amazing. And among all the the singles players from Great Britain, even if I think Djokovic would have beaten every one of them, but probably Evans would have been the one that could have caused more issues potentially between them all, due to his play style and his how well also he does when playing for his country. And without him, I'm seeing something lacking in the team environment. So I'm probably going to 55% in Serbia's favor in the tie right now.
Yeah, but what do you honestly think about our guys? Because if you look at, honestly, none of them have any spectacular runs recently. Jera and Lajovic lost in the second round in Paris. Kecmanovic lost in the first round. Biggest success, if I can say it like that, that any of them made was Jera's semifinals in Stockholm. So
I mean, yes, it's 2 points out of 3. I think Novak at this point should win his match. I'm really trusting him, especially for the Davis Cup. I don't see how much he cares this year, especially about
he's gonna be on 200%.
I'm really trusting him if everything goes according to the plans. And then I think that, given all what I saw this season, I think that probably Jera is going to play as the second single player. I think would be the choice as things stands now.
Should be.
I quite trust him. I don't know if he's going to win all his matches. For example, if he's going to face Draper, it would be, of course, not easy, but I think that he's a solid player that he's able to show quite a good level, and can, if the opponent is also having not a great day, he can do his job quite well. And then you have, in any case, you have the doubles. I'm trusting the team overall. Also, the other player, for example, if you think about the 2021, when Serbia actually got to the semis, the situation
don't remind me of that, please.
The situation of the player, not Djokovic, but the other player is better right now, regardless of what you were saying about the recent form. The situation is better, so I think the team is in a better place this year than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, Pavel, let me ask you this. If you look at other teams who are going to be competing in Malaga, so we have clashes between Canada and Finland, Czech Republic, Australia, and Italy and Netherlands. If we take into account that, okay, we're saying Serbia is going to advance, we're going to beat UK or Great Britain, who do you think will be the toughest matchup out of the 6 countries I mentioned?
It's an interesting one because it depends on injuries and suspensions. But I would say Australia would have a very good chance. I think they are another country that take Davis Cup, like Great Britain, very, very seriously. So you get certain nations that Davis Cup is very much high on their priorities. Serbia is one of them, Britain's one of them, but Australia is another one. And I think De Minaur is playing very, very well at the moment. And they've also got an Australian called John Peers, who's one of the top doubles players. And I think with this format, it's really important to have a strong doubles pairing. And one of the reasons that I was a bit critical of the British team, because they didn't pick Joe Salisbury or Jamie Murray, who are doubles specialists. They decided to go with Skupski, who's a very, very good doubles player, but he hasn't got the level of experience or titles that Salisbury and Murray have. So it was very interesting for me, because I think, just going back to the Serbia one, I think Djokovic will win whoever he plays. And like most years, he will take a lot of the burden from the team. But he played doubles with Kekmanović in Paris, which I think was interesting, because I think that's going to be the doubles pairing. And they played very well. They won in straights, and then Kekmanović pulled out the next round, so they didn't go any further. But it was interesting because they paired up just before the Davis Cup. So I think that gives us a clue of what the pairing is going to be in the doubles. The other countries, I would say Canada. A few years ago, I would say Canada, all these players coming through with Felix and Shapovalov and Raonic, and but this year we've seen Felix's tail off, and Shapovalov has completely gone off. He's out of the top 100 now. So I really don't know what's happening with Canada, because this time last year we were saying Canada are going to be a real force. So on paper they've got a strong pairing. The Czech team always have strong doubles, so again that's going to come into to fruition. Italy, I've got some strong players this year, and if Berrettini can get fit, I don't know if he's back fit, then he would be a big player for them. Obviously Mario is going to be in a better position to comment on it, on Italy.
No, he won't there. He won't be there, Berrettini.
Okay, well, that's a blow. That's a blow. But yeah, they've got many other good players. Is Sinner going to be playing? Will he be playing for
it? So far, he's in.
Okay. So him, Musetti, Sonego,
Arnaldi, which went in the top 50 this year. So he's playing at a good level.
Good lineup.
Yeah, I mean, a lot will depend if Sinner is going to be there, because if Sinner is there, 1 point is, at least in the quarterfinal, because then if in the semifinal it's against Serbia, then it's a potential, Sinner Djokovic clash in the Davis Cup. But of course, regardless of who Italy is playing against, Sinner, if he's there, it's of course a boost for Italy's chances, that's for sure, even because Musetti, Sonego are a little bit out of sorts. So I would probably go at this point with Sinner and Arnaldi, which ended the season quite strong, playing a lot of matches in the ATP tournaments, and also won quite a few matches too. So if these two players are going there and in a nice form, they can be a threat for winning the title. If not, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah. Okay. Pavvy, I'm gonna ask you if you would like to make a prediction for Davis Cup. I'm gonna leave Mario out of this, because we'll be talking to our friend Scott Barclay next week about this. So who do you think is taking this year's Davis Cup? And why Serbia?
Yeah. It's a really tough one. I think just mentioning the players, Serbia, if they had another backup to Djokovic, back in the day when they used to have, some really good, as there's some very good doubles players that backed up Djokovic in the singles, then I think it's going to be a heavy load for Serbia to go all the way. I think they will beat Britain. I think they will find it tough in the semis or the finals. So, and I think Britain haven't got the depth either. So my prediction for this year's Davis Cup is going to be Italy, I think. I'm not just saying, is it?
All right, Mario, as I told you, we'll be talking about this with Scott next week. So
for sure,
let's move to other stuff. Let's talk a little bit about, first of all, about you, Pavvy. Can you tell us about your tennis background and the state of tennis in the UK in general, in your opinion, in your view?
Yeah, I mean, so my background is I've always enjoyed playing tennis. When I left university, I used to play quite a lot of sports, but I decided to just focus on tennis after university. So I started playing a lot. I became involved in a club, so I've helped run a big club in Derby, which is 2 hours north of London for people to know, and I've run that for about 10 years now. I play a decent standard, so I'm not going to be giving Djokovic a run for any points on a court, but I'm a keen amateur player, so I play once, twice a week. And my love for tennis kind of started around 2001, 2002, but 20 years ago. So Ivanisevic was one of my first heroes. I watched him a lot at Wimbledon, so I would go to Wimbledon most years. Henman, believe it or not, was one of my favorites. And then it went to Body.
Why not?
Yeah. And I always like to back the underdog. And I think your next question about the state of British tennis kind of leads into that nicely, because the reason that I started supporting Djokovic initially was for a variety of reasons. First of all, I'm a baseliner, and I love that Djokovic was a baseliner and he would fight against these big servers, and and I thought, oh, actually, that's a bit similar to my play, so I kind of gravitated to his play. But the other thing that really irked me was being born and bred, obviously, in Britain and seeing a lot of the media. And I wanted to have a career in media, actually. So I studied media at college, and my whole plan was to go into journalism full time. But it changed because I saw the kind of the landscape of the British media was changing, and it was becoming paparazzi and sensationalized. And I just didn't want to be a part of that. And part of the stuff that I would see was the negative press that they would give to Djokovic. And I didn't like it. I just thought that, when I saw him, I thought, this young kid is doing real well. He's, yes, he's a little bit arrogant. He's a bit, maybe a bit cocky, but I like that. And I thought when you actually heard him speak in interviews, he came across really well. And as that's why he's got his nickname as the Joker. He was a funny guy. But then you'd read the articles and you'd see the Western press, and particularly the British press, almost hammer him. And I
when
just
sorry to interrupt. Let me ask you this: when did the bashing, as you said, start? Was it early, or when he started to achieve bigger things?
I think there's two folds here. So I think the initial bashing started, I would say, around 2010, 2011. And that was the time where he was the first time that he got to number one. So in 2008, I didn't think it was too bad. He won the first slam, and he was, in 2011, he became number one, and he started to beat Federer, Nadal, and obviously Murray, which is for British point of view, they just saw this guy from Serbia that it was taking away potential slams and major totals from three players that they loved. Now, there's a backstory behind this as well, is that the LTA, which is the British organization that runs tennis, offered Djokovic to come over to Britain to fund, resource him, give us citizenship, give him everything that he wants, if he was to sign for Britain, because they saw how good he was, and they thought it would be great for the game. And Djokovic thought long and hard about this, and this is another reason why I've got so much love and respect for Djokovic, because I would say 99% of people, if they had that on the table at 18, 19, would take it. And he decided that he wanted to stay to represent Serbia, to stay in Serbia, to get the funding and help from them. And he declined Britain. And I think it's something, because I know the LTA are very, very close to the British media. So a lot of these people are friends. They're all part of, the establishment. And it's been 40 minutes before I mentioned the establishment. So that's pretty good for me. So they're all part of the same kind of fabric. And I think when he declined that, and along with that in 2011, he started becoming a big challenger. That's when the press started really going against him. I think the second part of that was 2019. So he came back after injury. So in 2018, he came back after his elbow surgery, and people weren't really sure whether he was going to be anywhere near as good as he was. He started winning slams again, and now this time he was getting a little bit closer to kind of where the your Nadal's and Djokovic's, and he was also then member of the ATP Players Council, and there was a lot of targets. He was about to start the PTPA, so that's when it became particularly nasty. And from my point of view, that's when I decided to become almost like an activist, because I thought I'm going to use whatever voice I've got to try and tell people that whatever their British media reporting isn't actually accurate. It's not true. And that's when I took to kind of Twitter, really 2019, to become very more prominent, to say, even if I've only got, a few hundred followers as it was back then, it's important for me to have some sort of a voice to say to other people, to even make them think, even if it makes people think, say, oh, actually, well, someone's saying this. That's when I took a kind of more of an activist role, and that's kind of stayed with me now for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. By the way, sorry guys for me having a bad Wi-Fi. I don't know what happened, but it took me 30 seconds to reconnect. I honestly thought that I lost this recording, but everything should be fine. I think. I'll check later. Pavvy, when did you become a NoleFam? When did you start, following and supporting Novak?
So back in 2008, so there was, I think 2007 was the first time that I watched him in the Miami Masters, and that was when I was really starting to get into tennis. I was starting to watch, whereas before I would only watch the Slams really, or Wimbledon, but kind of 2005, 2006, I started watching all the other events, and I remember Djoković, I think he was 19, 20, he came on and he beat Nadal, Roddick and Federer, I think, in the same tournament. And he went on to win the Masters at 90, Canada,
yeah, Montreal.
And that's when I thought, this kid is really good, and I loved his sense of humor. So, when I'm on the court, I have a little bit of, I wouldn't say arrogance or cockiness, but I saw a lot of what I was on a tennis court in Djoković, and I actually loved his personality. I loved his style of play. So I became a Nole fan pretty much 2000, when he was 19, 20, and kind of stayed through that. And I think, what I was saying when maybe we lost you was I started becoming more prominent as an almost like a NoleFam activist 2018, 19, where I saw a lot of the British media in particular and the American media were really starting to vilify Djoković unfairly. And that's when I became more outspoken. And I felt that I had a duty more than anything just to try and put a little bit of balance and context into what was being said by the British media. And a lot of it was false reporting and propaganda and stuff like that, which is what we're still seeing to the very day now.
What happened?
No. Yeah. No, I'm just thinking about everything that Pavvy is saying, and I still for some reason don't quite understand why is that the case. What I mean, I've talked to Murray about this. I've talked to Julie, both on the air and off the air. I talked to a lot of other people, but in your opinion, with full honesty, what do you think is the biggest reason? Because I mean, a lot more people, more and more people are starting, to notice this and to talk about it. Some high-profile people. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, Marion Bartoli, talked about. She said basically, if Novak was like, I think she said American, but whatever. If he was from Western Europe, he would be like, champion, like he should be. So, what do you honestly think is, let's say, the biggest reason why he's not?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple reasons, and there's 2 or 3 big reasons. So I'll try and articulate those as quickly and as possible. The first one, I think Marion is absolutely spot on. There's xenophobia. He's from the Eastern Bloc. When I was a kid growing up, Serbia wasn't particularly well reported by the Western media in their war. So a lot of the Western media kind of almost thought Serbia was this, not very nice people, not very nice country. So there was always that in the mindset. So that, results in, that is xenophobia, essentially. They didn't like him where he came from, which was the Eastern Bloc. The second one, which I think is quite important, is that, Federer and Nadal were loved, and they were, they were Nike's top athletes. And Nike are one of the biggest and most powerful sporting organizations in the world, and very much part of what I call the establishment. And they had invested a lot of money, more marketing than any other players to make sure that they were at the top and keep them at the top. And they wanted them to be at the top. You know, they promoted that Rolex, they're the GOAT. And when they saw Djokovic come from Serbia as a genuine threat, that's when a lot of this targeting of media became more kind of virulent and quite nasty, really. So that's the second part. And the third part, I think, is a lot of them, it comes from jealousy. I think, you know, they couldn't quite concept that Djokovic didn't come from an upper class family. So it's very few, you know, obviously we have the Williams sisters that came from Compton, you know, deprived area. But there's very, very few players that come from a deprived area. And, you know, you hear Djokovic's war-torn story and the fact that, you know, we heard that his grandparents had to sell gold, you know, just for him to play. He used to go to tennis tournaments on his own at 12 and 13, and he didn't have, you know, huge funding, didn't have huge resources in Serbia. And I think a lot of them can't take the fact that this kid has gone right to the top, and they just don't understand it. And I think there's multiple reasons, and I do think that the media is very much part of the establishment. So all of the organizations that we've got in tennis, if you look at all the CEOs and all the people that are on the board, they're this is their second job. Their first job is they are CEOs of big conglomerates, big companies. You know, we see Moderna now sponsoring in tennis, we see Rolex, we see BNP, huge companies, and they're all part of the fabric, and they're all, you know, they're all linked to certain media organizations. So the media are petrified to sometimes say what they really want to say, because they are fearful of not getting accreditations, they're fearful of losing job opportunities. So they feel that they have to follow the narrative that their bosses are giving them. Because I know for a fact, I'm not going to name them, but I know some journalists have told me, some very prominent ones, because I've got some good relationships with some, that they are in no other position but to say what they are expected to say. And they said if they don't go against that, they will lose job opportunities. So, you know, a lot of them will text me and say, we completely disagree with what's said or done, but we've got no choice. And they go, if we don't do that, they'll simply find someone else who will follow what they want to follow.
Yeah, to quickly go back to the xenophobia part of, you know, media and establishment not liking Novak. Listen, as you probably know, Novak has a lot of haters even in Serbia, which still, you know, petrifies me honestly. But their reasoning, when we, you know, guys who like him and defend him, say what you said, they basically their reasoning is, and they say, you know, how come they love Ana Ivanović? And I mean, sure, if you look at it like that, it's, I mean, it seems like they have a valid point. But if you know, dig a little bit deeper, Ana Ivanović, and I love her, I adore her. You know, she's been a tremendous representative of Serbia. She's doing a lot of, you know, Serbia in terms of humanitarian, you know, aid and UNICEF work and those things. But Ana Ivanović is irrelevant when it comes to upsetting the status quo, upsetting the tennis establishment, as you like to say, and I agree with that. It's similar. I don't know how much you follow basketball or the NBA, but you probably heard of. I mean, you know of Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic is another high-profile Serbian that almost is universally loved in the NBA, in the American, in the Western world. But the reason behind that, he's not brashy, and he's not like open-chested like Novak. You know, I am from Serbia. I'm a proud Serbian. I will do everything to, you know, defend my, you know, you remember the you know, messages on camera during French Open, you know, Kosovo and everything. The reason why Ana Ivanović and Nikola Jokic and all those other high-profile Serbian athletes are like in the Western world is because they are, as we say it over here, you know, by the book.
Yeah, of course.
They don't say controversial things. They are, you know, fine doing their jobs, you know, agreeing with the overlords. I'm doing the quotation here. You can't see it. So that's my take on it. And I want to hear you know, what do you think on my opinion on the situation?
I think you're spot on. I've met Anna as well, and she's a lovely person, and I agree with all the things that you said that she does with Serbia, but she wasn't the greatest of all time. So she'd won a slam, but she wasn't challenging Federer and Nadal like Djokovic has, and has not just challenged them, he's surpassed them. But yeah, the point that you made about following narratives and following, saying the right things, that is key. So they couldn't control Djokovic. I know this because I know some of the people that were in charge of the ATP, the board level, that were in the board, and I'm quite good friends with a few of those, and they kind of told me that even from a younger age, Djokovic had a different mindset to Federer and Nadal. There was always a split there, and Djokovic was very passionate about philanthropy. He said in an interview that philanthropy for him is more important to him. He would want to be known for that than a tennis player. And philanthropy is essentially helping those that need it the most. And Djokovic saw that tennis, the way it was working, was benefiting the organizations, the businesses. And that ultimately is why he set up the PTPA. But what he's doing there is he's actually going against the big guys, the big chiefs, the establishment, the media. And then they're going to work together because they are thinking, well, we're trying to push something here. And we've got this kid from Serbia who is not listening to us. He's doing his own thing. And, we aren't going to do that. We're going to lose control. And it comes down to control, because control essentially is your power. Power is influence. And if you have all of those three things, you can propagate the whole world. And then that's what we're seeing in the Western world now, is if you have all of those people under your control, and if Djokovic was part of that, it would make life so much easier for them to push their messages across to, that's why he was so hated, the fact that he wasn't vaccinated, because they thought, well, if we had Djokovic, then, a lot more people will follow. And they just didn't like the fact that he didn't do what they kind of essentially told him to do. And Djokovic is a very, very clever guy. He does his own due diligence. He's very astute. He talks to a lot of people, reads a lot of books. He's very, very clued up with what's happening in the world, and he's not afraid to speak his mind, which is why I respect him and why he is my number one role model and inspiration in my life.
Yeah,
Mario,
if I can jump.
what's your take on it? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in because there are also a couple of aspects which I wanted to to amplificate and bring in, also because I can also apply what I study about sociology and all these things. First of all, when you mention that, in my opinion, it's that in itself, the it says that, of course, he is the greatest, because when you are talking about the greatest tennis players of all time, which is also an influent public figure, because I will say it, for example, here in Italy, Djokovic is a total star, which everyone knows, even outside the sport, because he appeared on television, on the biggest for example, he has been on the biggest Italian show of which is held every year. He came as a super guest, and everyone knows him. And of course, this for sure brings you also. I'm saying for sure, but not because I find, I can't justify that, but it's, social reaction also to your success, to your freedom, because he is a free person. And people can feel something because they also see in yourself what they have never been able to become. And it becomes difficult, and also because you also have created some damage also on the what was scripted in the history of tennis at some point, and it has become very difficult to accept also for an older generation, even because the younger generation it is already a little bit different, because even if you think about the Italian players, I'm talking about that because I know them even better, which I know each one of them, which was his idol, her idol growing up. If you're talking about the actual 16-year-old, 17-year-old, even the player who, there are a lot of young guys. For example, a famous one, quite famous at least on Twitter, was Flavio Cobolli, for his, because Djokovic has always been his hero, always shown that on social. Something is changing a little bit, because the younger generation got into tennis watching this unbelievable player who was, pushing even their own dreams, because he doing all what he's doing, he's kind of teaching everybody a lesson. And the younger generation has been, fortunately, part of them, of course, because you're still going to have another side. But I see that there is something different about my own generation, talking about people who are around my age, at least about the comprehension of all this story. And yeah, so it's difficult to explain what you were mentioning, this topic in an ordinary way, telling just one of two or three reasons, because there are a lot of factors that can impact all what all people can say and think, and each voice can matter. And that's also why I love this word, and I think that I have the right to speak and to say my opinion, and because I really like to take a part in all this. Yeah, that's what I wanted to underline. For example, I can take this example as for Sinner, that in Italy he has been able to be actually a controversial figure at some point, and you may seem impossible, because at least I think that you see him and you see what has he ever said, what it's difficult to understand why, but actually he has been the most controversial player Italy has ever had, for all the all what has been said from the media, some older players that have attacked him. It comes with success, and when you show that you are free. We have lost Pavvy.
Yeah, we lost Pavvy. I don't know what happened, but yeah, go on. I'll try to reconnect them.
When you demonstrate that you can be a free person, you can push your dream without any help, then people start to to feel something against you, because you are
We got Pavvy back.
what they never have been able to be.
Yeah, let's segue into a different topic, another topic I wanted to. It's something that Pavvy already mentioned a couple of minutes ago, and that is the PTPA, ATP Players Council, and overall Novak's relationship in the recent years with Rafa and Roger. Pavvy, do you hear us?
Yeah, sorry, I just lost you there, so I'm just putting on my iPods. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, the PTPA was a big thing for Novak, because, as I said, he got to the stage where he didn't think he could make an impact with the Players' Council. It was becoming very, very difficult for him to make many changes. So he decided about this 2019, and it became a reality in 2020, where he did say that he approached both Nadal and Murray and Federer with his idea, and all three of them were against it. So automatically, for me, you've got to be asking, why would you not want a players' association where every other sport has their own association and tennis didn't? And for those viewers that don't know the makeup of the ATP, it's 50% owned by tournaments and it's 50% owned by players. So there's a huge conflict of interest already, because the tournaments are owned by the big conglomerates, the big Modernas, your Rolex, your BM Paribas, the very, very powerful organizations sponsor a lot of the tournaments. the other tournaments are by federations themselves, so like the LTA or France USTA. So these are people that have got huge amounts of influence, and they are under the task to try and put their business interests and profits ahead of the players. So the fact that you've got Federer, Nadal, Murray, who have done very, very well from the game, like Djokovic has, to say, actually, we're quite happy with how things are, meant that Djokovic was one of the only high-profile players that thought, actually, no, I'm going to have to do this my own way and set up the PTPA, and he's obviously got together with Vasek, and they've done that now. But it's going to take time. But the fact that he's done it shows that he is willing to fight. And it's kind of what Alex Corrector said in an interview when he was speaking about Djokovic yesterday, is that the difference with Djokovic is if he wants to fight for something that he believes is right, he doesn't care about obstacles. He doesn't care about who he upsets or what other people think of him. He will go out and do what he thinks is the right thing to do, and he doesn't worry about losing sponsorships or losing popularity. If he's passionate about something that he feels is going to help the greater good, he will put his head out on the line. And I think Mario touched upon it before in saying that there's a lot of young players, young people that are now kind of gravitating towards Djokovic, and I think it's because a lot of people can see that actually what he's doing is actually doing for others. He's not actually doing for himself.
What do you think of PTPA's new executive director, Ahmad Nassar, and what's your take on the future of the PTPA? Will we see more higher rank or higher profile players, both on ATP side and WTA joining in the upcoming years?
Well, my prediction, and this is all taped, is that there's going to be a players' strike in about 6 months' time. So I think we're heading that way. I think at the moment the PTPA have said, look, we'll work with ATP and WTA. The ATP and WTA are not interested, so they're not giving the PTPA any seat on the bargaining table. That they're not giving them any leeway, any voice. They're just at the moment they're just noise. So what the PTPA are doing at the moment is very, very good, because they're getting numbers. So there's over 250 players that I've heard have now signed up with the PTPA. Jamie Murray is now signed up with the PTPA, which is a big thing. Naomi Osaka, obviously, we've already got Ons Jabeur, some very high profile. Nick Kyrgios, I've heard, is now joining as well. So there's a lot of high profile players that have now joined the PTPA, and by joining them, the ATP are then forced to do improvements. So we've seen ATP announce increased revenues and bigger tournaments. They're only doing that because the PTPA is existing. If it wasn't, they've got no worries. But they know that they can't piss off the players, and they have to give. So the PTPA are already doing a phenomenal job. I know they get a lot of criticism because even the media say, well, what the PTPA do? What are they doing? At the moment, they can't do anything because they don't have a seat in the table. The ATP and WTA own everything. Now, if things carry on, the farce at WTA in Cancun, the shocking scheduling the ATP did in Paris, it's going to get more and more players that are going to join the PTPA, and it's going to get to a stage where the players will say, we're not going to play this event unless you give us that. So that's where I think there's going to be a strike. There's going to be a big, and it happened in basketball, it's happened in other sports as well. But there's going to be a time where they're going to say, we're just going to boycott events. So they're going to force the hand of the ATPA and WTA to say, we have to listen to the PTPA because they've got more players now have joined them than the ATP and the WTA. And we're going to have to listen to what they say and listen to the board and listen to, their ideas. And that's the only way that they're going to survive. If they keep fighting PTPA, it's not going to end well for ATP or WTA. We're already seeing signs that they're struggling with revenue, particularly on the WTA side. So they've got a choice to make. They can either carry on doing what they're doing and they'll run the sport and the organizations into the ground, or they can stop, listen to what the PTPA is saying, listen to what the players are saying, and meet somewhere halfway where they can continue. But at the way it's going, I think we're probably 6 or 7 months away from players striking, boycotting. I can see it getting worse because the people in charge of the ATP WTA are very blinkered at the moment. They don't want to listen. They don't want to talk to the PTPA. They just want to carry on doing their own thing, and it's not going to end well for them, in my opinion.
Mario, what do you think about the structure and the running of both ATP and the WTA?
Okay. It's a tough question because things are pretty different. At least I would say I still cannot compare the ATP and the WTA because WTA is right now really it seems really being in a very bad state. At the point that not even players and the players who are part in the player council are really communicating to each other. Because I've seen some interviews during the WTA finals from Lynette, who is a player that last year for the 2023 season were sitting in the player council. Now is not there anymore for the next season, but she was there. She was explaining why, for example, the player chose Cancun instead of the Czech Republic, which made an offer for running the WTA finals this year. Even if the problem is bigger than that, players are tired. We've seen a lot of complaints. For example, one of the players who's been more vocal lately has been Elena Rybakina, which, even given how is she even on the court, seems pretty alarming that she is, for example, one of the most vocal player, because she really doesn't seem one of the girls who would talk, without valid reason. And also Badosa, for example, is one of the players who's really raising her voice, even in one of the latest interviews, even if not really directed to the WTA, but she really said that she finds that tennis right now is super difficult. And she was mentioning also the example set by Barty, who has retired at a very young age, and also Osaka, who for a lot of time has really struggled. And also she was pregnant, so a lot of various reasons, but she struggled a lot mentally. And there are plenty of examples. And the WTA is not really doing a good job, but starting from the basis, in my opinion, even promoting the girls and the top players. Let's talk about Swiatek, Sabalenka. For example, these two players, they have been the best two players in the world this year. They've gained more than 9,000 points, and they've been really close one to each other. But it could have been done way better in terms of marketing, promoting the rivalry, and also for how different they are in terms of the personality, the character. It could have been promoted way better, in my opinion. So there are a lot more problems for me in the WTA, but because they have problems even in really the basics right now, as for what I can analyze. For the ATP is more different because marketing, also they are lucky because let's be honest, the fact that Djokovic is still playing, it's very good for the men's tennis, and also a lot of good young players, because even Alcaraz winning majors at a very young age has been good for the ATP to create a new top personality. And also they have been I'm not saying lie, but in some way, yes, that the matches, for example, two young stars like Alcaraz and Sinner have played against each other have always been very entertaining. And so they basically started an interesting rivalry. And from a marketing point of view, the situation is, of course, way better. But do the player really matter? And that's a big question mark, because even a small issue, in my opinion, because it's fixable, like the one of the balls. it's mm, eh, it's very bad. It's a very bad look, because if the players themselves are really, bashing the organization because every week they change the balls and a lot of injuries are coming, it's very bad, and the players are raising their voice because they want more voice. And in my opinion, it should be that way, because the players are, what these organizations are selling and are promoting and are representing. uh, these organizations have were born as, to represent the players, and probably it's not like that 100% anymore, and that's a big issue.
Yeah, Bobby, something I asked you previously about. I mean, when we mentioned the PTPA and Roger and Rafa's response, which in my opinion was quite shameful, because, like, I think a day after Novak and Vasek, launched PTPA, they sent out a tweet that basically said, now it's time to be, united. It's not
United.
time to, yeah, exactly. So I find that quite shameful. But what do you think is Novak's? How does Novak's relationship looks like with both Rafa and Roger at this point in their career and life in general?
I think with Roger, he's never got on well with Roger. Novak, has a lot of respect for Roger. He has a lot of respect for Rafa. But if we start with Federer first, from a very very early on in their career, it was very clear that Federer wasn't particularly enamored with Djokovic, and you can look at numerous press conferences where he's kind of
Exactly.
put down Djokovic, and he's kind of complained about his injuries and the fact that he doesn't fight, when Djokovic in his early part of his career had a lot of health issues, which meant that he did have quite a few illnesses and injuries in his career, and Federer was never very supportive of him. The Federer and Djokovic camps have never got on well historically, so there's always been a little bit of tension between both of the camps. Again, there's a lot of respect, I would say, particularly from Djokovic. I don't know if that's replicated from the Federer camp, but I know Djokovic respects everyone that competes and is an athlete like himself, so he will always give them full respect. I think the relationship with Djokovic and Federer got kind of more tense around the time of 2015-16, when Djokovic obviously first of all saved those match points in the US and went on to win the US Open. And there was a time where Djokovic was starting to beat Federer in all the major slams. So I think there's only one slam final that Federer has actually ever beaten Djokovic in, and that was really very very painful for Federer, because Djokovic kept on beating him in finals. So that kind of went on, and obviously 2019 was the famous one. Federer said recently that was the biggest defeat that's hurt him, and he was very very upset with that. And it was Djokovic again, so he's got that angst against him. And then in 2020 they went different ways off the court with the PTPA, and then Federer and Nadal then aligned as one and almost against Djokovic. And then the whole vaccination process, Federer was part of the ATP Players Council, and part of their objective is to support all players, not just players that you like. Federer remained silent, and he was talking to Craig Tiley throughout the Australian Open. So even though he was injured, he was very much part of the organisation. He was was in chats with Australia. He didn't say a word when Djokovic was being taken and hounded by the immigration people, and he was interrogated for 7 hours, then he was locked up, and Federer didn't say a word. So I don't think there's any love lost between Djokovic and Federer. Obviously, what Djokovic will say, understandably, because he doesn't want to get any, hate. He respects him, he likes him, and I respect Djokovic for saying that. Now, Nadal is a slightly different story here, because Djokovic and Nadal were actually good friends in the start of the career, and they actually had the same sort of mindset. So from what I've heard from someone who was at the top of the ATP, was that Djokovic and Nadal in their early career very much had the same ideas in terms of supporting the lower ranked players, doing more for the players, and they were up against Federer. Now that changed probably 10, 11 years ago. So not recently, but then, Federer, I think this is probably due to the Nike influence and connection, where Nadal almost felt obliged to side with Federer, and so almost it then became Federer and Nadal against Djokovic. But Djokovic and Nadal still had a fairly decent relationship. And you know, Djokovic, I think, was it to 2019-18, he actually changed his schedule to help fundraisers with Nadal. You know, he did a lot of things for Nadal that he did because he thought that there was a mutual friendship. Now, that all completely changed in Australia 2022. Now, things before then were getting a little bit tense because they were now very, very close. At the end of 2021, that all three players were on 20 slams. And, you know, despite what Federer and Nadal may say publicly, I know for a fact that they are as obsessed, if not more obsessed, to finish as the people with the most Grand Slams. So things were
No, I'm sure
already
of that.
getting, yeah, 100%. At the end of 2021, Djokovic won 3 slams. They didn't win a single one. All of a sudden, their gap that they had, they're all on 20 each. So now they are sweating. And you know, their angst towards Djokovic is getting higher and higher. Now, what happened in Australia 2022, and Djokovic has alluded to this without specifically mentioning Nadal, but he was very, very disappointed with certain people that he had supported that decided to turn against him. So what Nadal did is it was actually worse than Federer. So Nadal was also part of the same players' council that are there to support ATP players. Now, what Nadal did was he didn't decide to stay silent. He decided to go against Djokovic and say, actually, rules are rules, his famous comment, actions
Yeah.
have consequences. And almost when Djokovic was being locked and detained, he didn't even have his luggage. He was in a room for playing a tennis tournament simply for not being vaccinated when he had been given clearance, a visa to land into Australia. They don't even let you board a plane to Australia if you don't have the right paperwork. And decided that that was the right thing, and that was all Djokovic doing. And you know, by doing that, he knew that would create a media frenzy, which would then put pressure on the government to act. So he was very much part of this, and you know, all of the Nadal team were very much part of this. You know, and that's why I got a lot of hate for, because people say, "Oh no, Nadal wouldn't do this." They haven't said that. Well, you know, they can say what they want. That for me is a fact. He was a very, very key part of Djokovic being deported in 2022. And the reason he wanted to do that, because he saw himself as a chance to get to the top of the pile. And I don't think a lot of people thought that Djokovic would even come back. You know, I even thought Djokovic may retire here. I would, you know, if I went through that and what they did and the impact that it had on Elena and the kids, I would say enough's enough. I can't do it. I'll be like, you know, this is impacting my family. I don't care. It's tennis. You know, what are these, you know, and you know, I think a lot of the players, probably Nadal, thought, I don't think Djokovic comes back from this. And if he does, he's never going to be the level he was. And you know, there is much shock as anything. So his relationship with both of them is very, very tense. You know, Nadal and Federer, you know, will congratulate, you know, other players winning slams. They find it very difficult to publicly congratulate Djokovic because they don't like them. And, you know, I just wish people would be honest to say, yeah, okay, they respect each other. They're phenomenal players. But I think Djokovic, you know, in his last interview he did with Serbian media the other day, was saying, look, I'd rather be honest than pretend to say things.
I love that.
And that's why I respect him. Yeah, absolutely.
What about his relationship with Andy Murray, who was honestly one of his best friends, you know, when they were, you know, growing up and they were younger, actually. I remember, you know, reading the headlines in the Serbian media and watching it on TV when Novak was getting married to Elena in Montenegro. Andy was practically the only guy from the tennis circuit, apart from the Serbian guys, who was, you know, there at the wedding with his, you know, future wife. So what do you think the relationship is right now? And of course, to go back to that comment he made on Instagram that you mentioned and that Mario and I already talked about in, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely spot on. So, you know, there was even rumors that Andy was going to be Djokovic's best man as well. He wasn't,
yeah.
but he was part of the, you know, he was very, very tight. So Andy and Novak grew up together. You know, Andy played a lot of his tennis in Spain, where Djokovic also did when they were young. So as teenagers, there's only a month apart between them. So they kind of entered the same tournaments. They became very, very good friends in their teenagers. They were inseparable, I've heard, and you know, Andy Murray has said this as well. And they would play doubles together. They would talk together. They would, you know, they were very much very, very good friends, I would say, not just, you know, competitors. That changed probably around 2012, 2013, when Djokovic started to really take control of the head-to-head, and I think Andy Murray is as competitive as any of them, and he was finding it difficult to keep the friendship with Djokovic, and I think to be part of the media as well, he almost felt that he had to maybe step away a little bit from Djokovic, and I think Djokovic has even alluded to that in an interview before, where he's saying they were close, but they were getting to a stage where they were competing, and it was very difficult to maintain that friendship. Since then, I think it's been very frosty. To be honest, I think Murray respects Djokovic, absolutely, and Djokovic respects Murray. They went 5 or 6 years where they didn't practice together, but they resumed once Murray came back after his injury. But it was slightly different then, because Murray hasn't really been that player post 216 since his hip operation. So that rivalry that they had before the injury isn't quite there. So I think Murray almost kind of felt, well, maybe we can get back to being where we were. But I still think there's a little bit of jealousy. I think Andy Murray and Djokovic had a very, very similar game. They're both baseliners. They were both people that would wear people down with their physicality. They were both mentally strong. So I think Djokovic, when he was getting all of the success in 18, 19, 20, 21, and Andy Murray was coming back, I think Murray felt this could have been me. If I was still fit and healthy, I could have won a lot more slams. So I think there was a little bit of bitterness from Andy. With regards to the Instagram comment, for people that have not seen it, so there was a random picture or a random tweet by Tennis Twitter where it showed Djokovic hit kind of Federer. It was in the line of play. It was quite different to what happened with Norrie, and then Murray kind of responded, said, "Oh, Djokovic was okay here, but with Norrie he was like playing and they were completely different scenarios there, because with the Norrie incident, Djokovic had actually stopped playing. He'd turned around, so Norrie could have hit that anyway. So I think he had the right to be a little bit angry there, because the thing, come on, you're a pro tennis guy. You can see that I've stopped playing tennis. Pros know. He could see that from his eye line, but the biggest thing is, why is Andy Murray getting involved in something that's got nothing to do with him, that he knows is going to gain traction? He knows it's on the public eye. He knows what social media is.
100%.
Why is he getting involved there? And I just think that was a day or two after he'd lost a tight game. And I think he sat there, lost an early tournament. Djokovic is cruising, winning everything. And I think it comes down to a little bit of jealousy and bitterness. And I say that as someone who totally respects Andy Murray and what he's done for British tennis. I absolutely, I can't speak highly of what him and his family have done for the LTA, for British tennis. So I say that with a huge amount of respect for Murray, but I think he was out of order there, and maybe a little bit of his true colours of how he feels towards Djokovic is coming out. Djokovic towards Murray, I think Djokovic respects him. I think they're both family people. They've grew up together, so I don't think Djokovic would ever have, and Djokovic would never say that to Murray. Let's be frank. He would never put a comment about Murray just getting involved. It's just not his style. So it was telling, and maybe he's trying to make the Davis Cup tie a little bit juicy, but I think it's down to a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of jealousy.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mario. I had to ask about another relationship, and then we'll move on to another topics, and that's the one that Novak is currently having with Carlos Alcaraz, which a lot of people, a lot of NoleFam seems to not like. So, what's your take on Nole and Carlitos' relationship? We've seen them, practice again in Turin. They did it in Paris. I love that. I honestly love the relationship that they have currently. I think it's only going to grow. I really think that Novak is looking at him like a mentor, like I put on Twitter, a master in the Apprentice. So what do you think? What do you think of that?
Yeah, first of all, let's also say that I can be a little bit biased on the argument, but because the generation is kind of the same. There's 2 years different from between me and Carlos Alcaraz, so I can totally place myself, putting myself in his position, and I like that, because as I think it was with you, I was telling you maybe in the last episode that, or 2 episodes ago, that I think that the generational gap is wide, even if right now they have a rivalry, because they are the best the two best players in the world. They faced in two very, very big finals. Carlos won in Wimbledon, basically has been the only guy able to beat Djokovic in a Grand Slam this year. And of course, Djokovic won that incredible Cincinnati encounter. They top the world right now. They have this rivalry, but it's not going to last like a decade, 15 years, let's say like that. We don't know, but in reasonable, it's going to be a short-term rivalry, it seems like, because of the generational gap there is. And for the fact that Novak really seems to be present in this new generation, because he's there, his relationships with all of the best players in the world. He speaks trains with also a little bit older guys like Medvedev, for example, or he did with Zverev too, for just to mention one, with Olga Rune. He really wants to leave a legacy, to do something for this sport, and so even practicing with them. And to be honest, I don't find anything negative in this, because as long as they respect each other, and even in that practice, I mean, they're not revealing their secrets to each other, and how they're gonna face each other when they are playing at an actual tennis match. So I see no problem in that, honestly. And I like the fact that Novak is really leaving a print in this younger generation. Let's say helping them, but in sense that practicing, speaking, letting them know how to be like he is, if they want to. He's, in my opinion, he's really leaving a legacy on them. He is present in the tennis environment, even if he is 36. And I honestly really like this, and don't think anything wrong, because they seem respecting each other, and I haven't really there was that kind of thing. Now I'm remembering, there was a little bit of drama during Wimbledon, the filming, the practice, but overall I think that they really both respect both role in tennis, because it's very different. It's not really like it was between Djokovic and Nadal. It's a totally different story. So I think that it's fine seeing them,
You're right.
practicing
Yeah,
together.
You're right. Pavvy, if you could use one word to describe relationship between Novak and Carlos, which one would you use?
I just lost you there. Just the relationship
sorry.
between. Can you just repeat the question? I just lost you.
Yeah,
there
of course. Yeah, of course. If you could use one word to describe relationship between Novak and Carlos, which one would you use?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Respect. I think there's a mutual respect. I think Novak and his team respect Carlos and his team, and I think Carlos and his team, or maybe just Carlos. I think there's a mutual respect. I think between the players, there's 100% respect between them, and I think Djokovic does genuinely like Carlos, and I think Carlos genuinely likes Novak. So I think it's a mutual respect.
Yeah, I share your opinion completely. Mario mentioned the word legacy a little bit, a couple of minutes ago. Sorry. We talked about PTPA, and we talked about Novak's philanthropy and all those things. What do you think when all it's said and done, when Novak retires? What do you think his legacy, both on the court and off the court, will be?
I think on the court, he's now the undisputed greatest player of all time. And I think the legacy that he left is he took the game to levels that it's never been before. We've never seen so many records be broken by one player. And that is just incredible because you look at how many pro tennis players. There's over 1,000 players that are playing professionally, and for one player to break every single record. So you're not part of a team. It's not a team sport where you've got players that are going to support and help you. This is a one-to-one sport. It's one of the toughest sports in the world. So for him to do that, for so many years, is just phenomenal. And his legacy will be that he was the greatest player of all time on court. Off court, I think he will go down as being one of the most outspoken kind of athletes against what I would call, the establishment, the disruptor, the person that put his morals, his beliefs, his values, his cultures, the man that stayed true to himself, the man that no matter what pressure he would got, no matter how much people paid him money or tried to do horrible things to him, he stood his ground, he stood tall. He has inspired a generation. If we all look at, obviously the vaccine's one thing, but Novak has stood very strong and clear on many, many topics, many that he's actually been proved right on. And even if he isn't, I think Djokovic is, he's true to himself. He does what he feels he believes. He doesn't listen to other people. He does his own due diligence. He's got his own counsel. He's got his own thoughts, and he's not afraid of sharing them. We're living in a society now where so many people are afraid to say things publicly because they don't know what the reprisals will be, what people would think of him. Djokovic said in that interview, he doesn't care anymore. He doesn't care if fans boo him or, are against him. He doesn't care if players are against him. With Australia, he's been through all of that. This kid's lived through a war. In Australia, he said it was the lowest, that was a war for him, an individual war. He's come through all of those. There's nothing that people can say to him or give him money to do things. He's going to be himself. He's going to continue to inspire generations, younger generations. And the moral really is to be yourself, be genuine, be honest, be sincere, trust your beliefs and cultures. And if they don't align with everyone, it doesn't matter. Djokovic has always said, if I'm the only person saying it, I don't care. I believe that. And, that's ultimately how you will get your respect from people, is by sticking true to your principles, your values. And if that's what you believe in and you can back them up why you believe in them, then no one can ever think worse of you. Ultimately, they will give you total respect for being who you are and practicing what you believe.
Yeah, it takes longer, but ultimately, it happens. One thing I also wanted to ask you about, something that you've been, writing on Twitter on multiple occasions. We've seen Novak experience some changes when it comes to his teams. His long-term friends and associates, Eduardo and Elena, left his team, and he has a new agent. I think his name is Mark Madden. I actually read that on one of your tweets. Yeah, but I was not able to find almost anything on that man on the internet. Can you tell us a little bit more if you have any information about him, both personally and professionally? I would really love that.
So yeah, no problem. So first of all, I knew kind of Eduardo and Elena, and they did a fantastic job with Novak, and will remain close friends. They did so much good work, and there was a great rapport. But I just felt that Djokovic got to a time where he wanted to look into different things, and they will remain friends. Now, with regards to Mark Madden, there's been a lot of inaccurate reports saying that he is taken over as his new agent. Now, Djokovic clarified that recently to say that he still isn't sure how, if Mark is going to be his new agent. Mark's already part of the team. So, I've met Mark a couple of times. He's already a very trusted member of the team Djokovic for 3, 4, 5 years. So he's always at matches. He's always in the background. He's a very, very close friend of the whole of the Djokovic family. Many people automatically assume, because Eduardo and Elena are no longer being his agent and manager, that Mark will take over, and that might be the case, but it hasn't yet been confirmed. So I think Mark is looking after things at the moment from a PR point of view and an organising point of view, and I think he'll do an excellent job. He's a businessman. He's a British businessman. He's got a passion for tennis. He knows the Djokovic's for a number of years, so that they trust him implicitly. So he's a really good guy. So Mark is someone that will always come and say hello to you. He's always got a smile. He's always very, very kind. He's very, very humble. And most importantly, he's, like Djokovic needs, he's got Djokovic's back 100%. And, the couple of times that I've met Mark, the first thing that I kind of got the feeling from Mark was that I knew that no matter what, he's got Djokovic's back 100%. And that's what Djokovic needs. And that's why I like Goran so much, because Goran treats Djokovic like a younger brother. And I know some people still are not sure about Goran, but I know that Goran's treats Djokovic like a younger brother, and they've got another fantastic relationship. But I think Djokovic just basically wants people in his team that he knows has got his back, and Djokovic, at the end of his speeches will always thank them for putting up with him and understanding him, and I think that's really important for him.
Do you think that Novak's appearances at the Ballon d'Or ceremony and all those other public events were his doings?
I think Mark's got some links with international sports. So he's the Ryder Cup was the appearance was, I believe, all due to Mark. He lives Wentworth, which is a top golf course in the UK. So he's got links with a lot of golfers. And yeah, I also think that he played quite an important role in Djokovic presenting at the Football Awards, being at Juventus. So I do think he's got links that are promoting Djokovic in a positive way. Getting him the limelight that he deserves, and he's being the agent of Djokovic at the moment is the easiest job in the world, because he's the most demanded athlete in the world. Everyone wants a piece of him because he's the greatest of all time. People have seen him stand up for who he is. So, being an agent, his agent, is pretty easy at the moment, because, a lot of people want Djokovic in a lot of their events. And he speaks so well. His speeches are so articulate and so humbling, and they're so inspiring as well. So I think a lot of the big sporting events love to have his presence.
Okay, and our last question, our last topic, something I want both of you guys to answer. I want both of your opinions, and that would be Olympics and Novak's goals and expectations for 2024. So Mario, let me first hear you, and then we'll close this episode with Pavvy's response.
Well, let's say that I will try to do a mix between how I think Novak would think and how I think how I think in my own reasonable way.
We can do that.
I first of all think that the gold medal is for sure the number one goal for a lot of various reasons. And first of all, because he wants to give this one to his country, and so I'm sure that this one is the biggest goal for him. We've seen how much he cares about the Olympic Games, and I think that it truly hurts him that he still hasn't been able to win that gold medal for his country. So he will try to do anything possible to do that. And then I would share that for sure the major tournaments, the Grand Slams are still going to be the biggest focus for him. And I would say that if we cannot expect him maybe to win 3 Grand Slams every year, but trying to add something to his palmarès. It can be winning one in the Olympics, and he can be happy about that, and a couple of Grand Slams. I truly don't know, maybe being back since he hasn't won that one this year being back to win Wimbledon. Who knows? He may find motivation probably in that, but I would say, the gold medal, the biggest one for him, for how he cares about that that event, the Olympic Games, and keep going in building his major legacy wherever he will be able to do it. Also regarding to his form and how the opponents will show up in each one of these four events.
Yeah, Pavvy, let me hear you.
Yeah, I echo Mario's voice. I think his number one priority next year is going to be the Olympic gold medal. The reason being, A, he wants to do it for Serbia. We all know how much it means for him. B, he wants it on his CV. He's got every other title on his CV. That's the only thing that is missing on his CV. Sorry. So that is going to be his priority. I think next year we're going to see Djokovic maybe play 10 to 12 events in the year. So I think he'll play all of the slams and he'll play 8 of the 10 masters. I can't see him playing any 250s or 500s unless he's doing it to help the profile. Maybe in Serbia, maybe he might do that.
Probably but either Banja Luka or Belgrade, depending on the location.
So I think he'll do that. I think he's going to play Indian Wells and Miami. I know he's got a lot of friends there, a lot of fans there, and he's missed not playing there in the last 2 years. So I think he will be back in those. And I think we're going to see a lot more of Djokovic off court next year as well with the PTPA. I think the PTPA is really now making strides. So Djokovic obviously is going to be a key part of that. So I think we're going to hear more initiatives next year. We're going to see a lot more prize money being spread out throughout the whole tour, not just the top 100 players, which obviously is the one of the prime reasons of the PTPA is that a lot of the money that is coming from tennis is going to the top 100 players, and the ones that are outside are literally struggling to pay even their day-to-day bills. So I think we're going to see a lot more support for players outside of the top 100. I think Djokovic is going to play a tournament, have a holiday, do work, play a tournament, have a holiday, do work. So we're going to see a routine. I think he, whilst he's still enjoying it, he's loving the rivalry with Alcaraz. I think he's that's gonna spur him on even more. I think hopefully a happy, healthy, successful 2024 with the Olympics at the top of the goal. And like Mario said, I think Wimbledon's key for him. I think he would love to equal Federer's record at Wimbledon. And then he's only one away from being the top at Wimbledon outright. If he wins the Roland Garros this year, he will be a 4-time Grand Slam winner in all of the events. And Monaco is the other one. So he's won every single event twice. If he wins Monaco, he would have won every single major event 3 times, which is phenomenal.
Yeah. Let me ask you a quick bonus question. Something I think I asked Mario a couple of weeks ago. So we have 2 scenarios. Scenario number 1.
It's a horrible question.
Scenario number 1 in 2024. Novak wins all 4 Grand Slams. Or scenario 2, he wins Wimbledon, Olympic gold medal, and the Davis Cup. What scenario do you think Novak will choose, and which one would you choose?
I think for me and for Novak, I think he would go for 4 slams. I think that's the calendar Grand Slam that no one's done since. Is it Laver? I think is the only one who's done it. So that I think would be close because I know he wants a gold. I know Davis Cup means a lot to him. Wimbledon means a lot to him. But I would say, winning 4 Grand Slams, he's got so close in 2021 and 2023, just 1 match away from doing that. Winning 28 Grand Slam matches in a year is phenomenal. So if he can do that next year, I would think he would probably take that over anything.
What if we eliminate Wimbledon from the scenario 2? So it's only 3 Grand Slams: Australia, Roland Garros, and US Open.
And what against it? It's a close one. I still think Grand Slams mean the most to Djokovic. I think because it means the most in tennis. It's the best of 5. It's a mandatory event. You've got all the players that are competing. So I would still say slams are more important to him. And if he can get to 30, you know, and set a bar that no one's ever going to replicate, then I think he'll probably just about take that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, let's say
that's the
that
same
he
response
wins the
Mario
Davis
had.
Cup this year. He wins the Davis Cup this year, so next year, you know, he can even not win that one, and so that shows
Yeah.
it's easier, and we go for the Grand Slams.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's true.
Absolutely.
That's true. Okay, that'll be all for today's episode. I want to thank Mario for always being with me, and of course, major thanks for Pavvy for doing this. I really hope both of you guys enjoyed.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, thank you so much. You know, I can't say how much you are doing for the NoleFam. You know, having this weekly podcast is brilliant. It's a great source of information. You've got some brilliant guests in. You know, I've listened to every episode, and I'm very, very proud
Thank
of
you,
you.
Pavvy.
You know, I've known both of you for a few years now, and I am really proud with how you have gone about. I know it's not easy. You know, I even thought about this, but I just couldn't get it off the ground. So I'm really honored and blessed to be on here, and I'm very proud of both of you. Keep doing what you're doing. You know, the NoleFam's got your back. I know sometimes things get difficult on the social media. We've always got your back as well, and keep doing what you're doing. And you know what you're doing at the moment is you're just promoting the truth, listening to, you know, people angles that you wouldn't, you know, other podcasts wouldn't have, like you've said before. So you know, we appreciate that. Much respect, and it's been a pleasure to be on here.
Thank you so much.
you.
Though,
Thank
you
you
know,
very much
for
for the
those
words.
kind words. Yeah, and as I said in a couple of previous episodes, there will be new content coming in 2024. We're still considering, you know, options, let's say, but there definitely will be. We'll be coming back next Monday, as I already said, with another episode. We'll have another guest. Our friend and colleague Scott Barclay from the Murray Musing podcast will join us and share some Novak and Andy stories and experiences. So I really hope you guys enjoy in this
So
episode.
basically,
Like
I will be kind of an umpire in this Serbian Great Britain tie, Davis Cup tie.
It'll be a civil discourse. Now I have to do what I always do, and that is to ask you guys to like this video, leave your comments down below, and share it. All those things help us when it comes to YouTube algorithm. Also follow us on our social media. Links are in the description down below. Don't forget to follow Pavvy if you don't do that already, which I think it's impossible at this point. But if you don't, the link will be in the description down below. And please subscribe to this channel. We are trying to reach 1,000 subs by the end of the year. It might be difficult, but with your help, I think we can pull it off. So please do that. That's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Idemo, Nole.
Idemo, Nole.